Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and today I'm going to do a little bit more DM prep. I'm going to do this on the fly here, real time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through some more of my process. My players know that Eberron is going to most likely be the game of choice that we're going to be running after we are done with Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. Now, as you do know from the previous review video that I did on Dragongrin, that is another world that has my interest peaked, so I may look into that instead of Eberron. But what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to walk through a little bit of Eberron stuff, a little bit of preparation. I think the catalyst for this video is there is one statement, one sentence, and I'm going to type it out right now here in Microsoft Word. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Here's the big thing. Cool. Now, what can your players do with it? This is a humongous question. It's a very important question that I think always needs to be asked whenever you are doing any sort of Dungeon Master prep. Now, of course, this doesn't apply if you're running pre-published stuff, you're running modules. But if you're making your own content, you're using your own world, or, as is the case here with Eberron, I'm making my own adventures, my own story within a pre-published thing, within the world of Eberron, you always want to ask that question right there. Cool. Now, what can your players do with it? Let's say that I'm creating some dungeon mastery goodness here, and I want to use Eberron. I don't know where I want to go, okay? Let's just say, sure, let's use Sharn, City of Towers, okay? Where do I want to go? Let's go to the North Edge. I don't know that much about this place. I don't know much about Sharn, City of Towers. Let's just pretend I'm starting from scratch, and I am going to be creating some content, something I can bring to the table. You know, I talk about that all the time. Plan one session at a time. What do I need to do to get ready for whenever that next session may be, okay, whenever my group shows back up? North Edge. The North Edge residential area is the quietest quarter of Sharn. At first glance, there's little to attract adventurous sorts, unless someone is interested in purchasing top-quality real estate. At the same time, you never know when this charming and innocuous area could be the site of a nefarious cult or a devilish plot. Very cool. I will remember this question when we get to it, but for right now, what I'm looking for is those 5 bullet points, right? I'm looking for something to latch onto, something that sparks and draws some interest. The Gates of Passage. I'm just going to kind of read this on my own here. There's one. Nightshade. So location is Nightshade. An apothecary dealing in exotic herbs and salves. Nightshade is also a tavern specializing in lightly poisoned beverages. I love it. So Nightshade is one. Okay, let's bullet that. I'm just going to scroll down. Cold Flame Keep. A garrison temple of the Silver Flame. This place once housed 100 Templars dedicated to protecting Sharn from supernatural threats. It has largely been abandoned. Only a dozen devoted Templars and adepts remain in residence. I like that one. Let's do Cold Flame Keep. The Bear's Rest. A modest inn maintained by a beast-hide shifter named Liara, who usually gives a discount to traveling shifters. The decor features various exotic hides. I like that. The Bear's Rest. You know what? We're going to stay with 3. From that, I'll extrapolate further, and we'll create 5 bullet points of interest off of that. So here we go. Nightshade. What did I like about that? The whole poisoning thing. An apothecary dealing in exotic herbs and salves. Nightshade is salves. Whatever. Nightshade is also a tavern specializing in lightly poisoned beverages. Okay, so Nightshade. What's wrong with Nightshade? What's the deal with this thing? Where do I want to go? An apothecary dealing in exotic herbs. Nightshade is also a tavern. Okay. Someone needs to be kidnapped. So they can't be poisoned too strongly. Otherwise, they may die. We just need something that will knock them out to not allow them to resist the kidnapping. Nightshade is a perfect spot to get such a thing. Cool. That's 1 bullet point. Number 2, talk to the apothecary to get the appropriate stuff. All right. Cold Flame Keep. A Templar there is being convicted, or what's the word? Accused. Is being accused of heresy. Kidnap him and bring him to the powers that be. Apologies on my savvy typing here. My keyboard is at an angle. I've got stuff going on. I told you that. A Templar there is being accused. A Templar where? At Cold Flame Keep. Okay? There may be some sort of a dungeon delve there. Ooh, dungeon delve in Cold Flame. The Templar is hiding out in the crypts below because he knows they are after him. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have number 5. What? Okay, Bear's Rest. A modest inn maintained by a beast-hide shifter who usually gives a discount to traveling shifters. The decor features various exotic hides. What the hell is that going to do with anything? The gatekeeper of Cold Flame Keep is quite fond of specific taxidermy stuff. Is that what I'm looking for? I don't know. He likes, he pays very well for certain hides and rare beast pelts. Therefore, gather something from Bear's Rest from Liara. And it may give you unhindered, is that the word? Passage into Cold Flame Keep. Very good. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 bullet points, okay? So, I just read through this very quickly. Nightshade. Something about that sparked. I like the apothecary and then the fact that it's a tavern that has some lightly poisoned beverages, right? There's some definite shiftiness going on there. No pun intended here when we get to Bear's Rest. Cold Flame Keep. Something about that. That's sort of the catalyst to everything. That sort of links everything together. A garrison temple of the Silver Flame. This place once housed 100 Templars dedicated to protecting Sharn from supernatural threats. It has largely been abandoned. I like that. There's a Templar that used to be housed there, and he's using this as kind of a hideout because he knows that he's been perhaps preaching to some wrong god. We'll deal with that, the Pantheon, later. I know Eberron is not too heavily steeped in that. Or it doesn't have to be per se. You don't have to go the full, it doesn't have 95,000 gods as like Forgotten Realms does. But there's something that he's been convicted of heresy. He's hiding out, okay? So that's sort of the latch point, the anchor to this whole thing, okay? And then Bear's Rest, notice how they all sort of tie in. You need something from Bear's Rest. You need to talk to Liara. You need to get this specialty hide, which will allow you to get through the front gate guard of Cold Flame Keep. You go to Cold Flame Keep, hopefully already having whatever item you got from Nightshade in the apothecary that will allow you, however that works, right? Whether I'm not going to say you put it on your dagger because you don't want to poke him, but whatever means to sort of poison this Templar so that you can knock him out and take him. Okay, he's supposed to be brought to whoever it is that's wanting to do whatever it is they want to do with him. Bring him to them unscathed, so to speak, right? You have to definitely bring him alive. Okay, so we have 5 bullet points. Nightshade. We have to talk to the apothecary. A Templar is there. Dungeon delve. And the gatekeeper of Cold Flame is quite fond of specific hides and so on. Now, here's where the catalyst to the whole video. Here's where the whole thing comes together. Always ask, what can your players do with it? When I write these bullet points, I'm thinking through my creative efforts as a dungeon master. I'm thinking through what strikes and what stands out to me. But at the table, they're the ones that have to go through it. And this question always starts to prompt you to think about what's interesting in gameplay, what's interesting at the table, what are the interesting things that need to happen to get me through that 5, 6, 7 hour session. Because this can stay very much in story mode for me. Ooh, that's neat. Ooh, I like this. That's inspiring. That's that. And yes, you need that. You need that base, that foundation to springboard off of. You need the inspiration to begin with. But I need to be able to now transfer it and translate that into actual gameplay that interacts and involves my players, most importantly. Not just gameplay, you're not trying to play solitaire here. You're not trying to be the DM that has exciting gameplay to you. And one way to kind of think through that is, let's say I have something that's really exciting, but it involves a lot of heavy combat. If you have a group that's primarily lore master bards, College of Lore, and rogues that are a lot more based in investigative stuff, right? Maybe they went the mastermind route, not the assassin route. You don't have a lot of martial classes. You don't have evocation wizards that are just roll initiative, kill everything, boom. You've got investigative people. You have people that are fascinated with Candlekeep concepts and libraries and study. If you have that, no matter what cool ideas you come with and things are sparked in your head that make you start thinking through combat and roll initiative and the awesome fights, you're not thinking from the player perspective because they want to go a different route. They want to go more investigative. They want to go more study. So you have to figure out and say to yourself, cool, really neat ideas and bullet points, but what can your players do with it? So to kind of finish up and start wrapping up the video very quickly, what I'm going to show you is just a few bits where I can take these 5 bullet points and attach it to something that might be relevant and important to my players. Because it's that interest that you're going to draw from them and the subsequent feedback you're going to get that really starts to shape the direction of this entire session and really makes this whole adventure shine, okay? So Nightshade, someone needs to be kidnapped so they can't be poisoned too strongly. If I have a paladin, he, she may be against the kidnapping. Why is it important to ensure that the kidnapping happens? Here's why. The kidnapping is actually the best way to ensure he isn't hurt. Another group wants him dead because of the heresy claims or whatever, the accusation of heresy. There's another NPC group of adventurers. Because he's been convicted of heresy, they want to kill the guy, right? They want to just burn him at the stake immediately. So kidnapping him is possibly a way to save him. So to the paladin, it's sort of the lesser of two evils, I think, is how I might want to word that, right? To the paladin who's like, hey guys, this is not right. This is just morally, this is against what I don't want to, the guy's a priest. We don't need to drug him. And the rest of the group has already decided he's not going to willingly make his way to trial. He's got to be drugged. But by drugging him, that's the way that we can save him. So you notice how they need to go to Nightshade, right? They need to get this poison. But maybe the paladin ensures that the poison doesn't have any lasting effects or harm. Okay? So to sort of appease the wishes of the paladin, fine, we'll kidnap him, but let's make sure we're not using too strong of a poison, something that's not too potent, so that when he wakes up, yes, we can knock him out so he doesn't resist us, we don't have to hurt him, but when he wakes up, there aren't going to be any lasting effects. So notice how I'm attaching that whole interaction between talking to the apothecary, going to Nightshade, going to that tavern and asking for some poisons to let the paladin sort of facilitate that whole process. It now attaches that interaction directly to one of the player characters, and it shows that the tenets of the paladin and the role that he's playing and the way that he wants to be this very lawful, good, morally upstanding individual, it shows that we can still mission accomplish, get the task complete, but we can do it within a manner that's showing respect to the way that that player wants to play the paladin. So we're attaching what can your players do with it, okay? And now the paladin has to kind of figure out his own sort of charismatic approach to it, right? He has to figure out his own level of deception and whatnot to make sure that he's getting poison and getting what he needs, but being able to run it through the manner that makes him feel most comfortable. Okay? Cold Flame Keep. So a rogues and fighters can be the muscle behind it all. Rogues can use rope skill, shackles, and such to get to bind the Templar or whatever his name, right? Yeah, whatever he is. Okay? Rogues can also scout the place out ahead of time to ensure they don't, in fact, need to turn this violent. You've got a barbarian in your party that basically says, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to make sure the paladin's happy. We're not going to hurt anyone. But if things go wrong, I'm Hulk smashing, right? So maybe the rogues and the ranger or something like that, those that are skilled in it, can ensure that this goes smoothly. The other thing they can do is rogues and rangers can scout for the enemy adventuring party to ensure that maybe they can sort of be the front line, like, hey, barbarian, why don't you come with me? If the enemy approaches, to make sure that this whole cathedral, or what is the area? Cold Flame Keep, to make sure this garrison temple and the Templar, and there's some normal priests in there as well that have nothing to do with the heresy thing. They don't want, you don't want to, no collateral damage. The paladin doesn't want any innocent harmed. So maybe the rogue and the ranger can say, hey, barbarian, come with us. Because if the evil adventuring party happens to make the drop on this Templar at the same time that we're there, maybe we can sort of have a little mini combat and facilitate that ahead of time so that none of the innocent people at the temple get hurt. Okay? So notice how we attach that. And then moving on from there, right? The apothecary's already attached to the Nightshade thing. The paladin's going to be the one talking to him. There's a Templar there. We already know we're going to kidnap him with as little resistance and harm as possible. The Dungeon Delve at Cold Flame Keep, right? We can attach that. The Dungeon Delve is part of the rogue scouting group or one of the wizards. Allowing them to investigate further and find out why the Templar is being convicted or being accused of heresy. Something to that effect. Okay? Allow the lore bard, allow the divination mage or the enchantment mage or whatever he is, right? The non-evocation guy or something like that to go into the dungeon or into the crypts, right? It doesn't have to be a horrible Underdark thing where you need the whole party there to fight some massive beast, but allow them to go and investigate and kind of get a little bit more behind the scenes so that, again, the paladin is sort of the key point here, right? Because he wants to do, this is a morally ambiguous situation, but the paladin wants to do it in the most upstanding way. So maybe they can dungeon delve and deal with that part of the crypts below Cold Flame Keep to kind of get more information and say, hey, you know what? This guy really is kind of scrawling some really evil stuff. And it allows the paladin to kind of jump on board a little more with the overall goal of the party. But notice that we're just attaching individual players, individual characters into what their specific role is. Okay? And then, of course, you can simply just have some sort of a Beastmaster or some sort of a shifter. And they're going to be the ranger, Beastmaster, shifter is the point of contact and negotiator for the special hide needed. And there it is. They're the ones that are going to deal with, what's her name, Liara or something like this? Liara. They're the ones that are going to deal with that. So notice, you've got specific people that have their own roles into the entire aspect here. And these things are bringing about more questions that I, as a dungeon master, need to wrangle through. But instead of just keeping it cool story for me, I'm now attaching it to specific characters. The paladin has something to do, and he feels like his manner in how he plays is now important because everyone is considering the fact that he doesn't want to do this violently. The rogues and the scouts and the rangers have something important to do because they're looking out for the enemy party. The barbarian has something important to do, and the martial class, the battle master, has something important to do because they need to lay out on the front lines to make sure that if there is a fight that's going to happen, it's kept away from the temple so there's no innocents being harmed. Again, appeasing the paladin. You've got the dungeon delvers, some rogues, or investigators, lore bards that are checking the scripts and the various scrawlings on the on the walls of the crypt to really bring about more information to validate why this guy needs to be kidnapped, right? Again, appeasing the paladin, saying, you know what, this guy is doing some really shifty stuff here. Okay, and then finally you've got the real druid, the druidic folk, the one that is going to deal with the Beastmaster, that's going to deal with Liara, the shifter, to procure these hides to allow them to get through the front door. And you notice how I've attached everything to individual party members. And I think by always going through your bullet points, but then also your awesome story, and then asking the simple question of, cool, now what do your players do with it? Or how do your players interact with that awesome story? You bring it to its base level, which is attaching it to the players. And when you do that, you're going to have a very successful game. So that's a big kind of ramble there, but I just wanted to show you on the fly. That's kind of why I was so rambly with it. I didn't have any of this pre-thought of, other than I knew that this thing in red here was going to be the catalyst for me making the video, and I knew I was going to talk through a little bit of Eberron adventure and gameplay design. So there it is. Kind of work your way through that. Always consider this big question. Cool. Now what can your players do with it? And I think you'll have a more successful game. That's all I have. Thanks everyone, and take care.